It's interesting that that's a topic to talk about, what motivates them. It may sound strange, it may sound silly, but people don't wake up in the morning and over coffee and donuts look at each other and say, you know what, babe? It is gorgeous outside. Let's go buy our casket today. They don't do that. And so what is it specifically that makes them either want to walk into your door, or when you call them, they say, yes, we need to talk about that? That's what we're going to talk about today. So I want to talk to you a little bit before we get into all of that, how Preneed Motivators actually came about. Preneed Motivators is a study that we started doing back in 2006. What you're going to see today is actually the 7th edition of the study that we've done, and we update this every 2 to 3 years. And we've seen a lot of changes throughout the years. I've been in the profession for 30 years. I've seen a lot of changes since I first started at our local funeral home in Hutchinson, Kansas, where I sold funeral prearrangement to families in the community. And we have at Homesteaders have seen so many changes since 2006. Recently, we've had a pandemic. We've had crazy high inflation. We have seen people's buying habits change. They're shopping online more than ever. I don't know about you, but at my house, it seems like it's Christmas just about every day. Between Amazon and Poshmark, the packages just don't stop coming. So, we are shopping differently than we ever have before. Who would have ever thought you'd get online, put your grocery store order in, and drive up, have them bring it to your car, or maybe even just deliver it to your house? I mean, things have changed so much in the last several years. And so that is what this study is all about, is just seeing how trends and things have changed throughout the years. So as we go through here today, there are 3 main sections that we're going to talk about. The first section that we're going to talk about are the demographics and the behavior of people who prearrange. Then we're going to talk about how consumers progress through the consideration process. And then we will discuss what happens during and after prearranging. And then sprinkled in through those 3 areas of conversation that we're going to have are practical suggestions on strengthening those relationships and connecting with new families. So, first thing we're going to talk about is what you should know about people who prearrange. It's interesting. You will see here, the majority of people that prearrange do it right here, between the ages of 70 and 84. That is what, for some reason, people have deemed to be the right age to prearrange, is somewhere in that age category. Now, at Homesteaders, our average age of prearrangement contract owner is 74. That's the average age of contract owner. And so we fall right within that category, kind of towards the lower part of it, but that's what the average age is at Homesteaders. And again, the right age is that 70 to 84 category. Now, there's some things I want you to know about these people, because it's not just the age that falls in here. Starting on the last little sliver of this column here, and I'm sorry, my hands are never steady, but you have the silent generation. The silent generation are those people that are 79 to 96. And they have certain characteristics that, starting on this end, coming up here, those are the baby boomers. And they're very different in how they do things. For example, the silent generation is not very likely to tell others that they've prearranged, whereas the baby boomers are. And the silent generation is not as likely to shop online, whereas the baby boomers are doing way more research online and they're shopping online. So those are just a couple of the differences between the silent generation and the baby boomers. And so, but they all fall in here in this group that we're marketing to. And so we need to understand how best to reach those people, know their different characteristics so that we can reach them in the best way. So what is our opportunity here? Has anyone done an in-depth market analysis of their community? I'm seeing some heads shake. Do you mind sharing? Was there a reason you did it or something specific you learned?
Yes. Well, we wanted to know not only about their age, but also about the different culture available in our community.
Okay.
And what we found out is there was an interest for us to have different events that would more cater to certain cultural demographic of our population. And as a result, we increased our market.
Awesome. Okay. It really helps you understand who it was you were serving, how to target that market, and increase your market share. Fantastic. That is what a detailed market analysis can do. Help you understand who your market is. There's a number of reasons you do this. For example, it just helps you determine your goal, whether you're wanting to increase your market share in your current market. Maybe you're looking at wanting to build another location and you need to know if the market's going to support that, maybe where to do it. Maybe you're wanting to better understand the trends that are taking place in your community. For example, cremation. We all know that cremation is becoming more and more popular all of the time. Cana put out a report in just recently that said that by 2030, 72.8% of families will choose cremation, that will be the average nationwide. That is up 16.7% from what they published back in 2020. That was just 4 short years ago. So things are changing rapidly, and maybe you need to understand what the industry trends are, especially in your area. It's important to know the demographic data as well. And informed analytics can help you with that as well, because it will help you understand how your community is made up. Maybe it will tell you how many veterans you have in your community. It will tell you how many Hispanics or other ethnicities that you have in your community. It will tell you how many women versus men, average income, average age. There are so many pieces of information that a detailed market analysis can provide to you. It can also help you to understand better your competitive landscape, especially in a bigger city. It can help you understand if you're more top of mind than your competitor is, or vice versa. Those are all important things for you to know. But when we're talking about reaching this right age, knowing that demographic data, understanding your market, understanding in detail what it represents and how to serve it can be very, very important. I mentioned to you that the average age of policy owner at Homesteaders was 74. The average age of death of a policy owner at Homesteaders is 84. Now, we're seeing it compared to the general population right here, life expectancy, 77.3 in 2020. It's down a little bit from 77.8 in 2019, probably due to COVID. But, maybe you could have a new slogan somehow, that prearrange your funeral and live longer, because our average age is 84. You could live 7 more years. Anything is worth a try. We asked our consumers, what is your marital status? When we talk about this right here, we're showing starting in 2015, the different years. And then the gray column here is just comparing this information to the general U.S. Census. So 50% of our new policy owners were married. And that holds pretty close to what we see in the U.S. Census. Nearly 50% of the people in the United States are married, just a little bit less than that. But look at the widowed. 27% of new policy owners are widowed, whereas that only makes up 6% of the U.S. population. So a very high percentage of people that choose to prearrange are widowed, especially comparing to the general population. And then 23% of new policy owners are not married. There's quite a difference there between the ones that are not married that did a prearrangement versus the number of not married people in the United States. So let's look at some opportunities here and what we might learn. One of the things that John talked about when he talked from Olivia was text-based aftercare. When we're dealing with such a high number, a high percentage of people who have lost a loved one, having some sort of aftercare program can really be vital. Keeping in touch with them so that the last piece of communication they have from you is not the bill. Having that touch for the next year or at least the next several months can really be key to them. And what John didn't say that I will say, he talked about Elizabeth. We have many of our customers that use Olivia, and there are other programs out there that do a great job as well. But Elizabeth, for example, it's interesting the number of thank you cards that our funeral homes get for Elizabeth, of how thankful they are that she's been in touch with them, how thoughtful she was, the messages that she sent. We've even had at least one situation where one of our funeral homes received a gift basket for Elizabeth. She's a remote employee, if you will. So, having those touch points, people really do seem to enjoy that. But there's other types of aftercare programs as well. There's a more traditional type of aftercare program that many funeral homes have used for years that probably encompasses some sort of folder. And in that has all kinds of different information. A prearrangement counselor might go out and meet with that aftercare family, present the death certificate to them. Maybe there's a little free gift that the funeral home gives to them at that time. Oftentimes, there is a list of things that they need to know in order to close out the individual's estate. So that can be very helpful for the prearrangement counselor to go over with families at that time. And oftentimes there is a folder in there that gives them a place to be able to record their own personal wishes, their own personal thoughts, and the information that's needed for things like death certificates and obituaries and just general funeral service information to help them begin planning for their own funeral at some point in time. So having aftercare can really be a very key, important aspect to having a thriving pre-need program. Religious affiliation. Tyler Anderson is going to be one of the presenters here, I believe tomorrow, possibly. But he has done, I've heard him give a fantastic presentation on the nuns. And that is those people who just do not have any type of religious affiliation. 31% of the United States population claims to not have a religious affiliation at all. But when we compare that to new policy owners in 2023, 81% of people have some sort of religious affiliation. Only 9% of people do not. And so with this information, when it comes to having, reaching people in your community for prearrangement, connecting with religious organizations can be very helpful. For example, the church that I belong to, they have a seniors group. They meet every month. They have a dinner. They have entertainment. They do different things together. And this is a situation where if you are connected to the religious associations in your community, they oftentimes are looking for speakers, someone to come present information to them. And that gives you an opportunity to educate them about the value of funeral prearrangement. Of course, you want to be open to any of the organizations because, again, there are 9% of the population, or the 9% of people that prearrange that don't have a religious affiliation. And there are many groups that don't cater to any specific denomination at all. We have an organization in Wichita Falls called the Red Door, and they are more of an entertainment thing for people in their 50 and above. It's a great way to get connected to an organization like that. It's simple things, providing bottles of water with the funeral home's name on it, maybe coming in, sponsoring an activity every now and then, or having a time where you go in and talk about the advantages of funeral prearrangement. There's all kinds of things that you can do with these organizations, religious or not, in helping educate about the value of funeral prearrangement and really the value of funeral service in general. We wanted to know how many people had helped someone plan their funeral. You can see here that 20% of people have helped plan a funeral before, prior to death. 51% had helped plan a funeral after death. 34% of people have never helped plan a funeral at all. Some of the takeaways: 71% of the people in total, whether it's before or after death, had helped plan a funeral in some way. And it's interesting as well that more often than not, women are the ones that help plan way more funerals than men. We don't like to talk about it very often. Women seem to be better equipped when it comes to handling death. And they are the ones that tend to deal with this way more often than not. So what can we do here? Cultivating client relationships with your client families to provide additional resources and opportunities to remember their loved ones. We are right here at the holidays. Does anyone have a memorial event coming up? Okay, see a few hands. Someone over here. Okay, I'm starting to see them on social media for the funeral homes that I'm following on Facebook and Instagram. And this is just a popular time to have events like that. And events like that can give families the opportunity to talk to others. And it's a way for you to show them, the ones that you've served throughout the year, how thankful you are that they chose you. And it just gives you another touch point as well with those families. Providing information online. Did you look on the internet for information on prearranging before you made plans? Now, you can see here, 83% are still saying no, they did not. But I want to take you back to what we talked about with that right age of people that are 70 to 84. It is the baby boomers that are coming up, and it is the silent generation that's starting to fall. The silent generation they don't do as much online as much as the baby boomers are. And what you're seeing right here, as showing here in 2017, 92% said no, and it's continually gone down a few points each time we've updated this since 2017. And the number of people that are saying yes, that they are shopping online, is going up. It's almost doubled since 2021. I think we're going to continue to see this rise as time goes on, and this continue to drop because people are shopping more and more online. They're looking for a lot of different information when it comes to shopping online. Number one, they want to see about prices. What do funerals cost? They want to know about their cremation options. They want to know about funeral providers in their area. Probably they're looking at pictures to see what the facilities look like. They are looking for things like reviews. Are you like me? Do you look at reviews before you go to a restaurant? No? I'm seeing most people nodding their heads that they do. Or maybe staying at a hotel, you're looking at reviews. We look at reviews for a lot of different things. This is one more thing people are looking for: reviews. All right? And so more and more people are shopping online. It's growing. It's a growing trend. Does anyone have an online sales platform attached to your website? Some are saying yes. Okay? That can be hugely important when your customers are going online to shop and they're looking for pricing and all the different things. Some people feel a little conflicted when it comes to having an online sales presence. And there can be a couple of reasons for that. Sometimes they feel like, well, that takes away the human touch. The customers need to speak to a human. I don't disagree with that. But what we find is that while some people do purchase online, the majority of people don't. The ones that are actually shopping and completing the purchase online are oftentimes those people that you would have never got an opportunity to meet with in person. They're very private. They don't want to meet with anyone. They would just as soon look at your website, see what packages you have to offer, and choose from that, pay for it with their credit card at midnight, and be done with it. Okay? But it's a fairly small percentage of people that do that. Oftentimes, what we're seeing to answer that question is, do we need the human touch? Is that people go through the process, but they don't finish it all the way. They go so far and then they abandon the cart. Just like every one of us have done when we're online shopping, we put a bunch of things in our cart. We don't end up buying them all, but we have things sitting there. So when that happens, then oftentimes those abandoned cart leads, if you will, are provided to the funeral home. So that's a funeral director or a pre-need agent or someone can reach out to them and answer the questions they have. Maybe they were just concerned about a line item in a package and they just need some questions answered. Maybe they didn't feel comfortable entering their credit card number, and you can help them complete the sale and relieve that problem for them. That gives the opportunity for that human touch. It also, as I'm showing here, can be a great lead generation provider to your pre-need agents as they're following up with those abandoned cart leads. Is anyone for those of you who have an online sales presence like this, are you having sales that are happening through your website? Yes.
Well, I allow them to go to the point of credit card.
Okay.
Don't allow them to pay.
You don't allow them to pay.
Right. Because I want to review what they've selected to ensure that every item, A, is needed.
Okay.
B, they didn't not select something that is required.
I see. Okay.
So I'm the human at the end of the day who goes through, reviews it, calls them, and now we have a relationship.
Okay, I gotcha. That's definitely one way of having that human touch involved, having the agent being able to follow up with them. Okay. Anyone else do it differently than that? Okay. We're going to get into the second section now. Why people are or what happens when people consider prearranging. John mentioned it when he gave his presentation. The number one reason that people prearrange their funeral is because they have had a friend or a family member pass away. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was working for a funeral home in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And it was during the lunch hour. I was the only one there. The other pre-need agents had left, and two ladies stopped in. We got to talking, and they said, Greg, when we walked in your door here, when we left the house, we had no intention of coming to the funeral home. This was not the destination. We were headed to the grocery store. But they said, we got a mail piece just in the last couple of days, and we've had two friends that we've just recently buried. And we were on our way to the grocery store. We drove by the funeral home, and we both looked at each other and said, we need to go get this done. They turned around, they came back, and I wrote 2 prearrangements that day. All because they had a friend or a family member that passed away. That is a powerful motivator. It brings reality to all of us. It helps us know that we're not invincible, and planning ahead can be one of the greatest things that we do for our family. So it is one of the number one motivators. 18% of people are finally comfortable with the idea. 17% finally reached the right age of 70 to 84. And 13% finally had the money where they felt comfortable that they could afford doing it. So, again, what is an opportunity here? Those text messages, having lost a loved one or a friend, you can have any one of your family members or anyone receive the text messages. You put in who you want to receive those. And so these types of thoughtful messages can also be, this is the advanced technology way of reaching people versus just the mail campaigns. I'm not saying mail's bad, mail's great. It still works. But this is the new way of reaching families and staying in touch with these ones, especially that have lost someone recently. How did you first find out about funeral prearrangement? Now, I find this slide to be very interesting. 53%, by far here, someone knew someone who had done it. So referrals is huge. We talked about the baby boomers, the silent generation. The baby boomers do tell friends and family what they've done. And you can see here, 53% knew someone who had done it, and so that enticed them to do it as well. What I find interesting is 14% heard about it from a funeral professional. I don't know about you, but to me, that presents a real opportunity that we have as funeral professionals to be more in the forefront of educating our families about funeral prearrangement. 9% saw it or heard about it in an ad, 6% attended a presentation. So, what can we do to foster people to share their experiences? Having times where we're getting people together, fostering things such as community events. Have any of you planned a community event, whether it be like a fun run or a fundraiser of some kind where you're working with another organization in town, such as the animal shelter or a charitable organization, something? Has anyone done anything like that? Okay. All right. And was it a successful event? Very much so. Things like that give people the opportunity to interact with each other. It's a funeral home event. It gives them the time to talk to each other about how great the services were that they received from the funeral home. Those types of events can really foster a lot of interaction with people who have chosen to prearrange and telling others about them. How much time passed between when you first thought about prearranging and you actually filled out the paperwork? So you can see here that some people, it can take as long as potentially 2 years to do this. But really, when it comes down to it, 62% of people, from the time they begin thinking about it until the time they actually do it, it happens within a year. Most of them do it within that first year. 43% actually do it within the first 4 months. So you do have a fair amount of people, 29%, that it takes quite a bit of time to do it, but the biggest majority of people will do it within the first 12 months or less from the time they begin thinking about it. So what are some of the things that we can take away here? I talked about having an in-depth market analysis, for example. And there's so much information that can give you. One of the things that, for example, our market analysis provides, it has 8 different clusters, if you will. Everything from the retired in comfort to scraping in the city, scraping in a small town. There's several different categories that people are in, and they all have different ways of different buying habits. For example, the retired in comfort still responds surprisingly well to traditional newspaper and direct mail. Whereas scraping in a small town, they respond more to broadcast TV, digital video, and radio. So you're not going to get to the people that are in the category of scraping in a small town by doing direct mail as easily or by having an ad in the newspaper, because they don't take the newspaper and they don't read the newspaper online. And so it's really important when you are talking to these people and trying to get them, encourage them to consider doing a funeral prearrangement, you've got to reach them in the right way. And that's what an in-depth market analysis can do. It can really help you deliver the right message to the right people at the right time in the right way in order to be able to help them understand how important prearranging actually is. We hear a lot about shopping these days, and people want to shop. And probably in some of the bigger cities, it might be a little bit different. But overall, amongst the 847 respondents we had that this information is made up from, 74% only went to one funeral home when they made this decision. They aren't shopping as heavily as what they say or what we oftentimes hear or think they're doing. 74% went to one funeral home, 18% went to two, only 9% went to three or more funeral homes to gather information. The vast majority of people are going to one funeral home in order to do this. And so, something that you can do here, it's important to get the message out there. When it comes to going to one funeral home, who are they going to learn about? You or your competitor? There are different ways of promoting your funeral prearrangement program. Some funeral homes choose to do it themselves. They are what we call the captain of their own ship. They want to be in charge of how they do all of the marketing. They want to recruit and train the talent and all of those things and be very hands-on. Many funeral homes, they can't do that, though. They don't have the time. They're very busy with the at-need side. And really, that's the specialty. Their specialty anyway is handling their at-need families. Those are the ones that are going to come first. And so the other way of reaching the community is by utilizing a marketing partner. There are many different marketing partners that are out there that do a very effective job at marketing for you. Heard someone this morning talk about outsourcing. It's kind of like the aftercare. I believe it was John LaFront that talked about outsourcing that part. And this is just one more way that sometimes funeral homes choose. They outsource this part. Doesn't mean that the funeral homes can't have control over how their prearrangement program is promoted, but it does give them the opportunity to have someone help them in running it and promoting and being their biggest cheerleader out in the community and promoting the value of funeral service. So now we're going to talk about what people experience during and after prearranging. When people prearrange, we find that very few people have buyer's remorse. You can see here 76% of the people that prearrange are completely satisfied with taking care of their arrangements ahead of time. 21% are very satisfied and 3% are fairly well. None are slightly or not at all. Over 90% of policy owners are completely or very satisfied. That is big. We typically don't have. Has anyone had a family member come in when their loved one died that had a prearrangement and said, I wish they hadn't done that? It does not happen. No. The satisfaction with doing this ahead of time is very, very high. And so one of the things that you can do, take advantage of people that come in that are very satisfied. They can be great testimonials for you. It can be fantastic to have them on your social media giving a testimonial or being at a community event and talk about why it was important to them to take care of their arrangements ahead of time. Or maybe it was the loved one and they talk about how great it was when, everything was taken care of when their mother passed away and it made it so easy for them and that's why they chose to do it. But giving people the opportunity to share their experience, share online reviews. I know that many of the aftercare programs, Olivia included, they have the opportunity to have the Google reviews. And when people are making positive comments, ask the families to share those reviews. It's amazing the number of 5-star reviews that funeral homes get and the impact that can make to reach families that maybe they weren't reaching before outside of their traditional market area. How would you rate each step in the prearrangement process? The hardest thing for people to do is just simply to begin the process. They didn't know how to start. A few people found it extremely difficult. 22% found it somewhat difficult. Total 27% either 20 extremely or somewhat difficult. 73% thought it was easy, but the highest percentage of people here, the reason that they didn't do it ahead of time was just they didn't know how to get started. About 18% here deciding on what type of ceremony they wanted to have, and then 14% sharing plans with their family. But by far, it was the opportunity there is helping people understand how to get started. If you don't have content or you're looking for content to put on your social media, we have a lot of things that we are happy to share with you. Throughout the presentation, and you'll see it again at the end, there's a QR code that you can click on, and you can click this study that we did, download the entire report. But there's also several different blogs and things that go way more into in-depth detail about many of the specific topics that I've talked about today. You can also go to our website. You don't have to be a customer. You don't have to log in. Just go to our homepage, homesteaderslife.com. You can go all the way down to the bottom to funeral professional resources. Click on that. And once you do, you will see another button that you can click on to develop video, or how to develop videos and things like that that you can put on social media. There are sample videos. There are scripts that you can use to help develop your own. There's all kinds of information that we are happy and willing to share. It may ask for your name and your email address, but I promise you're not going to be hounded over that. We just like to know who's downloading our information. But it's all there. If you need information to help educate your community members about the prearrangement process, there's a lot of information available to you that we can provide, or that your current provider, if you're using somebody else, that they can provide to you as well. All you have to do is ask. Most people prearrange at the funeral home. This has changed a lot. When I started in this profession 30 years ago as a pre-need agent in Hutchinson, Kansas, I would say 75% or better, I went to the house. I have been in some interesting situations, things that you don't even want to know about. But things have changed over time. Maybe it's because of security. People feel they don't feel comfortable with strangers coming to their house, or whatever the situation. But now it is that 77% of the time people are coming to the funeral home. And only 12% of the time do they actually come, have the agent come to their house. This really gives you some great opportunities here to showcase your funeral home, especially if they've never had an experience with your funeral home. You can really customize that experience that they have when they come in. Not just with you when they meet with you, but it's important to introduce them to the staff of the funeral home and everyone that that their family, that they or their family will be working with at some point in time. Gives you an opportunity to give them a tour of the facilities to see what will be available to them when the time comes. You can also take the opportunity to show them the customization options and all the things that you can do to serve their family. There are so many things these days. I really think that now funeral directors have become more in the way of event planners than they are just planning a service. I have heard of everything. I mean, all kinds of, a party down by the lake to, just something simple at a restaurant to a church service. There's just all kinds of things that you can do to help a family prepare how they want to memorialize their loved one. But this gives you that opportunity when they come to the funeral home. Maybe you have a community room where they have you can do dinners and all kinds of things. Really gives you that opportunity to showcase your facilities and all of the things that you can do for them. Which option best describes your current approach to each item? If you look right here, will and estate planning, retirement income planning, Medicare planning, long-term care, Medicaid, and veterans benefits. You see the dark blue there? All of those, that represents they have had a professional assistant when it comes to considering each one of those things. They are used to having help when it comes to planning significant events and areas of their life. This is one more thing. You are, as a pre-need agent, as a funeral director, as a funeral home owner, in order to do this, you're a licensed professional, and we are the ones to help guide them through this process. And I come back to people that had only 14% were told by a funeral professional about funeral prearranging. This gives us the opportunity. They're used to that assistance. Let's be the ones to educate our communities about how important taking care of these arrangements ahead of time can be. You can partner with local financial planners and other organizations. You can have lunch and learns with things like attorneys that specialize in senior events. You can plan with those health providers that specialize in senior health issues. All of those are great organizations to partner with, to talk to people, and you can capitalize on not only the relationships that you have, but the relationships that the financial planners and the other organizations are bringing. When you have these combined events, you can work with each other to reach each other's communities. Those who have prearranged are likely to recommend it. 34% said none. 3% said none, and I don't plan to tell anyone. 17% said none, but I plan to. 11% have told one, but 35% have told two or more. So the highest percent, they either plan to, or they've at least told one, or they've told two or more. So again, I come back to the baby boomers. They are telling people. It is the silent generation that we're seeing down here, but it's the baby boomers that are beginning to tell people. And so the opportunity that we have here is to involve those people who have made advanced plans with your funeral home and your marketing in your community outreach efforts. As we close here, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you about Stanley. Stanley and her husband have owned a hat store in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is where I live, Husky Hats, for many years, long before I ever moved there. We have a large community of ranchers, and so this hat store has been it's been in the community forever. I mean, you can't imagine it without Husky Hats. Her husband died. Stanley's husband died. Stanley was named Stanley because her father never had any sons, and she was the baby, and he named her Stanley because he always wanted a son named Stanley, and so she got the name Stanley. When Stanley's husband died, they went to Austin Stone and Monument to have the memorial built. So in talking about her husband and, the hat store and all of the things, Austin Stone and Monument created this incredible monument in the shape of a huge cowboy hat. It's really beautiful. And so Stanley was so pleased with this, the whole family was. And so Austin, it's Austin Kazee owns Austin Stone and Monument, asked her if she would be willing to create a commercial. And so Austin Stone and Monument has a commercial, and it doesn't feature Austin Kazee. It features Stanley. And she's talking about her husband, and she's talking about when he passed away and this incredible monument that Austin Stone and Monument created for her, and how proud they are of that and how beautiful it is. And at the very end of the commercial, she says, "Won't you come and see my friends at Austin Stone and Monument?" That is powerful. What a powerful testimonial for Austin Stone and Monument. That was more powerful for her to come on and tell that story than for Austin to have a commercial and tell that story. I contend that most every one of you in here has a Stanley. So I want to ask you, who is your Stanley? And who could you talk to about being willing to tell about the services of your funeral home? Does anyone have any questions about anything we talked about today? Okay. Again, the QR code here is available to you. If you would like to download the full report, it's available for you. I encourage you to do that. There's all kinds of resources available on our website that you are welcome to take a look at and use however you need. Yes, sir. That's okay.
Have anybody my age maybe even come in and do a sort of pre-need before? Oh, okay, sure. Anybody my age or younger than the baby boomers? I know you mainly talked about them in the silent generation, but is there any Gen Z, millennial?
We do. It's just a much smaller percentage. It is a smaller minority of people that do come in at your age. But some of that, when it really comes to age, it has to do a lot with how the funeral home is marketing. Okay. There's a lot of different factors that it can influence the age of people that come in. For example, if a funeral home tends to be a little more passive, let's say, in their pre-need marketing and are really just depending on those that walk in the front door, you're going to see a higher age category with that. Okay. Whereas if you have someone maybe who has a marketing organization that's taken that part of the program over for them and is really out full time in the community, and they have a full program going on all year. Maybe they drop mail a couple of times. They have community events going on. They do a lunch and learn every quarter. There's different things that they're doing. They're going to reach a younger demographic. We have a Hispanic marketer here in Texas, and they tend to have a much younger, their average age is 48. But they're very active. They do a lot of radio shows. Again, talking about that informed analytics and how to best reach your markets. They have learned radio shows work, and they have done a lot of work with that, a lot of radio shows, and they reach a much younger age. So yes, there are those. Is just not quite as many, but a lot of it comes down to as to how the funeral home is actually marketing and who they're marketing to. Good question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today.